Hello, welcome to... What session am I in? 28. Hello, welcome to Campaign Diary 28 for the Abomination Vaults. This one's going to be a little bit different because I decided not to write a script for this one, because that's the part of the process that takes the longest. I'm going to see if I can improv my way through this, just ad-lib what's happened and talk to you that way. We'll see how it goes. The audio is messed up for the recording of this one because it, for some reason, double recorded my players, but not myself, so they have an echo to them. So because of that, I will only be using the clips that are most relevant to the session. Sorry about that. When we left off, Milo and May had been cursed by one of the books. This is part of the research encounter that I prepared for this level of the Abomination Vaults. After reaching the 10-point progress bar, they get cursed after a saving throw. May and Milo failed, so they have been seeing ethereal, ghostly forms at the periphery of their vision, giving them a -2 to perception checks until the curse is lifted. Getting that curse lifted was their main priority, so they went straight to the Dawnflower Library to ask Vandy if she can remove it for them. Unfortunately, remove ailment doesn't include curses until it's a much higher cast level, higher than Vandy's able to do, so that's currently not on the table. I haven't seen a mechanic in Pathfinder for removing curses, aside from magic and spells and things. So I'm under the assumption that it's kind of left more to a roleplay scenario or trying to figure it out in-game, which I'm all for. And I went very much into the improv this session because of that. But before they could resolve it, they did try and get some sleep. The rest of the party slept fine, but I did make May and Milo make will saving throws. They both failed, so they didn't get the effects of a long rest. But I didn't give them the fatigue condition. That seemed a little harsh. So their first point of progress was to return to where they got cursed. This turned out to be the room that Shivergrim was in, because that's where they had picked up the research encounter and hit that 10-point threshold. I decided to let them make assumptions, and I was going to react to them. So I had no clear goal in mind for how to remove this curse on my end. I was just going to see what sounds interesting, see what they assume about it, and then react to that and play off those assumptions. To be honest, I really just wanted to see what they came up with as a resolution, and I think it worked out pretty well, so I'm glad that I did go that approach. I definitely lent into the horror aspects of this session. I described the figures in the periphery of their vision as these dark, hunched-over, Slenderman-like creatures that were pitch black, wisping with little bits of smoke, and had these burning, coal-like eyes. When they touched the book that had cursed them, all the figures suddenly stopped scuttling and stared at them. This definitely freaked them out a little bit and made them slow down on the progress they were making. When they started taking actions that focused on either damaging or casting spells on the books, the figures began to behave a little differently. As you're finishing the ritual, you get this flash of magic in the book, and all the shadows in the periphery of your vision just stop this scuttling, and all in unison turn and make eye contact with you.
Creepy.
Guys, do you see this? May, do you see this?
Do I see the same thing? Like, see them looking at Milo? Or do I have my
Yeah.
own hallucinations? Oh, shit. Yeah, what did you do? Did you piss them off?
Yes, I mean, I was just, I guess they don't like it when I dip their book in magic. Can I distinguish any features of these creatures?
Not really, because they only exist in your periphery. When you scan over to look at
Right.
one, the ones you're looking at suddenly aren't there anymore, and new ones appear at the side of your vision.
Yeah, but I can tell I can feel their eyes in the back of my neck,
Yeah, they're what you can kind of see is very hunched slender men with burning yellow coals for eyes.
I want to get out of here now. Right. But was this when I finished my casting?
Yeah, as soon as the spark of acknowledgement of what it was went off, they all froze and started staring at you.
Okay. So, what did my read aura tell me?
That it is magical.
Yeah, alright. It's magical.
They then tried to identify the book, hoping it would reveal a specified way to remove the curse. This definitely escalated things. You start to identify the book. Out of nervousness, fear, every so often you glance up from the book. Every time you do, the shapes have shifted slightly and are slightly closer. The same thing happens to you, May. If you look to the left, the ones that enter your periphery are slightly closer.
Oh god.
When you scan back to the right, they are slightly closer still. As you get towards the end of your identification, you kind of look up from the book, and one of the faces is hanging over the back of the chair, looking up, like upside down, staring straight into your eyes. Still, this is probably the first one you see with a bit of clarity, because it doesn't shift away as it enters your proper vision. And it's this like black shadow of a face, no nose, no mouth, just these deep, burning yellow holes in its face. Did you finish the identification?
I feel like every time I say yes to something like this, something bad happens.
You mean something fun happens?
Yes. But I mean, actually, I think like at this point, I would not be able to finish like my survey of this book. I would be, as soon as I look up and it's just hanging there in front of my face, that's when he lets out a very manly scream.
I had the figures move in closer slowly as they identified the spell, each time getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer. My intent here was mostly to make them give a little bit of pause, to slow them down, make it so that it wasn't so much an easy resolution as to just burn the book. I wanted them to start to doubt themselves, and this to become more of like a mind game for them. Of course, May and Milo were the only ones who could actually see these figures, so for everyone else, those two were just freaking out, and it made a very tense situation where the others didn't know what they could do. They almost needed permission from May and Milo to risk trying things, because those were the ones that were at risk. Eventually, they decided that if Gorgon tried to identify the book, since he can't see the figures, maybe they wouldn't react. This was definitely not the case, and May and Milo watched as one of the figures very slowly appeared behind Gorgon, opened this incredibly wide, terrifying grin of a mouth, and just leant forward slowly, taking Gorgon's head into his mouth before May tried to slap the book away from Gorgon, but one of the creatures physically stopped her, for the first time actually interacting with one of the cursed people. As you rush forward, you feel something grasp your tails and hold you in place. And you look back, and one of the creatures has grabbed the base of one of your tails and is staring up at you.
Oh my god.
As you look back towards Gorgon, the one looming above him has this hairline fracture of a grin from like eye to eye forming in its mouth, and its jaw begins to slowly open into this impossibly wide maw as it just leans further and further, very slowly. From your perspective, placing Gorgon's head inside its mouth, Gorgon still cannot see anything and is reading the book. You probably got 30 seconds left on the identification.
Can I see that May is getting physically pulled away?
Yes.
Okay, then I will go and snap his book and just close it.
You can also see that I'm sitting there, like rigid, like staring, mouth wide open, like, what the fuck?
Okay, Ornifex marches over and slaps the book out of Gorgon's hands. Thankfully, Ornifex picked up on the hints that were being put down there and knocked the book away from Gorgon before he was beheaded. They spent a long time discussing their options. Some of them wanted to burn the book, some of them wanted to douse it in holy water, some of them just wanted to tear it apart. At one point, they even discussed just attacking the shadow figures, but since half the party wouldn't be able to help, that seemed extremely risky. With it being a curse that has definitely escalated into being more than that, there was no clear objective here other than to just make this memorable, which is why I sort of lent into all kinds of improv-y, unexpected turns in the encounter. Definitely more than a curse is supposed to be. Eventually, May decided that they had to do something, so she began to very slowly tear a page out of the book. This, of course, made the creatures react very badly.
Like, I just want to, like, rip a little bit. Like, I'm not ripping the whole page out. You know, just a little to see what they do.
They all freeze again and stare.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
Did they do that as soon as she ripped the book, or as soon as she started interacting with the book at all?
As soon as she started tearing a page. And once she stops tearing the page, they continue to stare at her.
Oh, no.
Oh.
I want to put the book down and watch them.
They are still staring at you.
Oh, God. Guys, I think I fucked up.
Milo began to see less and less of these shadow figures, whereas May began to see more and more of them. The reason I did this was to show that they were focusing in on May as being an aggressor on the book. And originally I just said that Milo was seeing less of them, and they made the assumption that tearing the book was killing them, and I didn't want them to make that assumption, because that was not going to be correct. This was extremely improvised, this entire encounter. I was just reacting to what they were doing and saying, and making sure that everything they did felt like it had a reaction. It felt like they were progressing, learning things. The creatures did not get over what May had done, and more of them appeared and began to physically block her in the room. She couldn't leave the room as they filled up the doorways. And they began to hurt the party in odd, subtle ways. Even the ones who couldn't see them, as they tried to move through the room, they would get scratched and cut as they, from Milo and May's perspective, were pushing past claws and teeth. I really wanted to escalate this into a conclusion soon, as I could feel the party definitely didn't want this to be a lingering, ongoing effect, so I wanted to make it scary enough that they had to resolve it now. Eventually, things did come to a head. There was a point where the room was fully blocked out, Milo and May could not get out, and the rest of the party were beginning to get a little bit tired of this encounter. May, who was completely surrounded, acted out of desperation, and she grabbed the book and decided she was just going to burn it. In a pretty clever move, Ornifex decided to cast Sanctuary on May, and as she burnt the book, I described as all of the creatures screamed and charged May, slamming into the Sanctuary shield, clawing against it, biting into it. I only did this description because of the Sanctuary spell. Hundreds of creatures rushing in on May. It's not something that I would have actually had happen. Once the book was burned, the creatures suddenly stopped, stood upright, and just faded into the ground. I had no intention of actually hurting May, and if there wasn't a Sanctuary spell, I wouldn't have done this description. I would have probably done it in a different way, but I wanted Ornifex to feel cool, and since she had used a scroll on this Sanctuary spell, I wanted it to feel like that spell had had value. Since they were no longer cursed, the group recovered for a little bit, had a bit of conversation, and then they went on to explore more of the dungeon. First, they went and checked that siege history room, since the wood golem had, despite being beaten, kind of chased them out of there. With 2 people down and no healing, they had just ran with them back to the surface. So they found what they had missed. They learned about the past siege attempts on Absalom, and they learned that the person who had been writing these notes had clearly been trying to assess the weaknesses in these siege attempts and cross-analyze them to attempt to figure out how their own attempt could be foolproofed. Next, they moved on to the unfinished library. The walls of this room are only partially completed and bear the telltale marks of chisels and picks. Discarded stoneworking tools lie against the unfinished walls. They found the striking pick, which is really the only useful thing in this room, and they vowed to move that striking rune into somebody else's weapon at a future date, since none of them really want to use the pick. And then they went into the furnace room. The air in this room feels blisteringly hot, although the source of the heat isn't apparent. Neither the wooden barrel containing a few iron scoops, nor the metal bin with a hatch-like lid seem to be the source. This room has a haunt that is triggered by 15 intelligence or more creatures. Since the remaster removed statistics, I decided to put this to a +3. I know that +2 is the actual stat associated with 15, but it felt nicer to have it as a +3. As such, though, my entire party is too stupid to trigger this haunt. So they kind of just got a ring for free, which they need to identify, but still, I think they enjoyed that they were too stupid to trigger it. I did just tell them, like, hey guys, there is actually supposed to be a haunt here. You're too dumb. But we had a very good laugh at that. There was not too much left to explore on this floor, just the far right side of the dungeon. And the party is too scared to go any lower right now, but they will have to eventually, so just get on with it. They decided to research the Shrine of the Canker, but they didn't find the secret room, and as such have not found the Whispering Reeds yet. And then they went to the Author's Hall. Long shelves with several chairs drawn up to them ring this room on all sides, save for the north. Rancid stains of old blood and decay cake the shelves and floor. This is supposed to have ghouls in here, but I did remove them, mostly because they kind of feel like they've handled the cult at this point, and they're getting a little sick of ghoul fights, which I perfectly understand. There's been a lot of them. They did find the secret door, though, so they moved on and eventually came into the guard room. A small alcove, its floor decorated with a silvery circle of inlaid runes, sits in the eastern wall of this empty room. As part of a rework I'm doing on the campaign, I wanted to add more focus on devils. This room mentions that there used to be a bound devil in this room, but that's gone. I added that one back in as a little zebub. My main goal here was to tease future plot points and instill in them that they are actually being protected by Erevian right now. The devil reacted quite warmly to them, it didn't attack, and it actually confirmed that it's been told by Erevian that it cannot attack them.
Hello? Hello? Do you understand me?
Yes, I understand you. I'll shuffle past.
Oh,
Excuse me.
I've been told to let you through. So be on your way.
By whom?
Master Revian.
Oh,
We've been told not to get in your way.
all right then. Thanks, I guess.
You see he eyes you hungrily, and a little bit of drool pours down his chin. She wipes away.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine as long as you don't do anything.
No, never would. Not allowed. You're in his
Alright.
good graces at the moment. He needs you.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Well, good on you.
The Zebub explained that the portal went into a prison and it warned them not to engage with it. After a short break in this room, they progressed into the pool. The dripping, sloshing sound of water fills this large cavern chamber. The air is cold and damp, and to the east sits a sizable pond. A lazy rivulet of overflow trickles to the north down a sloping tunnel, while a 5-foot diameter opening gapes in the ceiling above the center of the pool. This, of course, triggered the Gibbering Mouther fight, which has been teased for a little bit now. The Gibbering Mouther was not too dangerous itself, but May, Sesto, and Ornifex all fell to the confusion for a while. The fight became very dangerous because May is the only person in the party with a striking rune, and she beat the shit out of Milo. He was unconscious multiple times, he was on 1 hit point prone next to May, who now has a reactive attack. Things looked very bad for Milo. Sesto and Ornifex spent most of the fight just beating the hell out of each other in the corner. If it hadn't been for Gorgon keeping his brain and being able to protect everyone and attack the Gibbering Mouther, this could have gone very badly. With how May has been with the town in general and feeling a lack of reason for doing this whole thing, God knows how she would have reacted if she had killed Milo. That probably would have been the last straw for her. Eventually, though, people broke out of the confusion and they did manage to kill the Gibbering Mouther, and peace returned to the room. That is where we ended the session. It was actually really nice to just improv for a while. I used to run entirely homebrewed 5th edition adventures with monsters homebrewed. Everything was homebrewed, everything. For a while, I felt like I didn't know Pathfinder 2e well enough to risk improving, but I'm pretty comfortable with it now, and I could create improv scenarios while still incorporating the game mechanics into it. It was nice. It was good to go back to sort of how I used to run games for a little bit. And my party seem to really enjoy it. Hopefully it's a nice, memorable thing for them. There is very little for them to do on this floor now. They have a couple more rooms to explore, and then maybe they want to finish the research counter. And then finally, hopefully we can get them to go down to the 4th floor where things change a bit. This one has been a big floor. It's lasted a while. It's kind of felt like the adventure slowed down a little bit. Hopefully encountering a Voluk will let me kick things up in gear a little bit. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video, despite the flaws in the recording and the fact that it's not had an actual script, was still a good video to watch. Please let me know in the comments if you have any feedback. Doing them this way will let me get them out faster and more regularly, so let me know if that's something you kind of prefer to the maybe professional quality of the previous ones. You can find links to my Blue Sky and my Discord in the description, as well as my website where you can see my homebrew setting. Not that it's in use. The tournament has finished its first wave. The round 1s have been done. We have 4 competitors in the semi-finals, and they will be doing their second runs soon. So look forward to that. But that is it for today. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.